Please welcome our next session to the stage, Connecting the World of Today and Tomorrow.
Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. It's wonderful to see so many of you, and hello to my esteemed panel of guests. I'm your moderator for this session. My name is Rebecca McLaughlin, Eastham, and it's wonderful to be here at FII and in Saudi Arabia. We have a very interesting panel for you. Come with me as I take you into space. It's the next frontier. As one of my panelists said, it's as if we went to sleep, we woke up and everything was rebooted. The world is now truly digital. We're going to be talking about space-based internet, and I have an esteemed panel I'd like to introduce you to. Firstly, we have Sunil Bharti Mittal. He is the chairman of OneWeb. Please welcome him. We also have Joseph Bradley. He is the CEO of NEOM Tech and Digital Holding. Welcome, Joseph. And completing the lineup, we have His Excellency, Lord Gerry Grimstone, the Minister of Investment for the United Kingdom. Gentlemen, hello again. So we've woken up and the world has rebooted. Suddenly we're in this truly digital age. There's been satellite connectivity for decades, but we're really moving the conversation on, aren't we? The next frontier is space. So Sunil, let me come to you first. How is space-based internet really bridging that gap?
Well, for long years, it's been a real problem for the mobile networks or fiber to connect the last 1.5 billion people. And this has been an enigma for a long, long time. And the satellites which are up there at 36,000 kilometers away from Earth don't do the job that is required to be done, especially with the new digital age tools that you need. A Teams call, a Zoom call, downloading videos, it's almost impossible. Yeah. With a LEO constellation, I think the game changes now. High speed, high capacity, low latency, you will have absolutely the same experience that you get on 4 or 5G networks now in areas which could have never been reached before. Forests, deserts, mountains, oceans, and in sky.
So much about accessibility. We will come on to that in a second. Joseph, you tell me that NEOM may be based in Saudi, but it's for the entire world. And this technology is something that you've really been pushing through. It's been accelerating at such a rapid pace. Tell me, how do you compete with cellular and other resources in the tech field?
Yeah, I think it's a view that you have to say what's required in order for us to really create this version and this vision of NEOM. For us, we call it basically digital air. And so it's not really either or technologies, it's a combination of both. So in highly populated areas where you have fiber and you have 5G installed, it's great. But as Sunil pointed out, we want to make sure we don't create digital divides. We want to make sure that we extend NEOM vision to everyone and make that an inclusive one. And so that's where satellite technology, LEO technology now has changed the game. We're fundamentally getting the same speeds as you have in a 5G network without having to provision fiber and cables and antennas. And so it's really, really a game changer.
It's a game changer. Would you agree, Lord Gerry?
I absolutely would. And I think the fantastic thing about this, we talked earlier today about partnerships between the public sector, the governments, and the private sector. And this is an absolute example of this. This is something which the British government did with Sunil Mittal. Started off as a great UK-India collaboration. British government, fine Indian telecom company. Then France joined, and South Korea joined, and today we're cementing this relationship with Saudi Arabia. And to me, that is a real kind of testament to bringing people together. And why are we doing it? Well, as you've heard, so we can bring communications to everybody. When we're finished, there will be nobody on the planet who won't be able to communicate with everybody else. And that is a great vision to go for.
You did mention, you gave me a little teaser there about an announcement with Saudi, and stay tuned because right after this panel, we'll be hearing more about that. But certainly partnerships are very much at the core of pushing this technology to the next level. Lord Grimstone, let me ask you again though, in terms of this conference, its remit, its outlook, investing in humanity and putting people at the heart of this conversation, how might this technology really help people, individuals, society?
Well, I think it is, connectivity. You know, we're so used to connectivity, aren't we? We think of it as a daily occurrence. But remember, there are still many people in the world who don't have that connectivity. So our dream is to bring that connectivity to anyone, whether you're a schoolgirl in an African village, you know, somebody in the far reaches of Saudi, you know, or anywhere. And I think that's a really great thing to do. Space to some people, it's a remote, you know, fantastic thing. This is bringing space into people's houses.
Space into people's houses, and talk to me about marginalized communities, Joseph, because they too need to be considered, and there's such a digital divide, so how do we bridge it with space-based internet?
Yeah, I think it's really important. You know, one of the things that happened pre-COVID, as we talked about backstage, is, you know, we went to sleep, and then COVID hit us, and the world rebooted, and we figured out that the most important asset we have is us, is humans. And we have to change our perspective and move the conversation from being one that is simply diversity, where we are celebrating that we have a diverse environment, to one that is inclusive, meaning that it drives full participation in the realization of that value. And this technology allows everyone to participate in the digital economy. That's what's so important. Innovation is not just ideas, it's invention plus execution. And so while you have the innovative aspect, this technology allows everyone now the ability to execute because they have access to those same capabilities and those same skill sets. That's one of the reasons I think fundamentally this will represent a true shift when we think about the acceleration of human progress.
Speaking of shifts, let's talk about the commercial world, because how is this going to affect businesses? You talked about economies. What about the local economy?
Well, you know, in today's world, when data is the new oil, you need to have nth level of backups and connectivity. So going to the extreme levels of, let's say, Amazon or Google or Microsoft Cloud, they will need backups. And if the submarine fiber was to go down because of some storm in the oceans, then you will need a backup through satellite. And the current satellites can't do that. Now, we are in discussion with all of them to see if our LEO constellation can provide the much needed backup for the cloud to give absolute certainty to those critical applications that when fiber goes down under the ocean, we will take over immediately. Then there are small, medium enterprises deep in hinterlands. There are warehouses of very large companies, factories, installations, and importantly, government military installations, which are in remote parts, in Arctic, in South Pole, which require continuous communication through internet. All of them will get now very high-powered medium of internet that we can give.
And am I correct in saying that you're making forays into those areas, Greenland, the Arctic?
Absolutely, including connected vehicles, so whether it's armored cars for the army or it's a BMW on the streets, if they're going outside the grid, outside a radio network, today the cars don't stay connected. They will in future.
They will in the future. Joseph, talk to me about the challenges, the speed bumps in the road. We know where we need to get. We know how quickly we want to get there. But this sector is not without its challenges. Liquidity could potentially be one of them. But I know that you're also a fan of open ecosystems. Are we there yet?
So I think we're taking a really huge step. I think lots of times, when you look back on success, a lot of people like to think of, the previous success as the best predictor of future success. I think in this case, that's not the case. There are fundamentally major changes that have occurred, one of which is the explosion of the consumption of bandwidth. Whether you're talking about 5G, whether you're talking about gamification, you're talking about Xverse, you're talking about an explosion of services that are now requiring and demanding a new set of bandwidth and capabilities to be delivered across the spectrum. And so I think that's a huge avenue. I think the other area that I think is important is access to talent. You see, when you think about access to talent these days and you're trying to get tech talent, they just don't want to sit around and build video games. They want to change the world. Words like digital divide, words like reshaping humanity, they mean something. And so when you take this technology and you put it in light of what applications it can deliver, it actually is exciting a whole new generation of tech talent to get involved. And so I think this is not just a technology around connectivity, it's really a movement. It's like an awakening for humanity around how do you responsibly deploy technology in a sustainable fashion.
Thank you. Lord Grimstone, let me come to you. From the UK's perspective, this is an exciting space, obviously, in light of the agreement, which will be signed later. But are we almost at full capacity? And I'll put this to all of you. Are there enough players now in this market, this competitive sector? Low orbit is getting pretty crowded.
It is, but competition produces innovation. I mean, how many people realize that one of the world's largest manufacturers of small satellites is Scotland?
Yeah.
We're expecting to be able to have rocket launches from the UK sometime next year. Almost unbelievable. So even though it is crowded, there's always room to do the extra thing. And of course, I think, as we've seen from the dreadful times of COVID, humanity keeps on advancing, keeps on innovating. And I see this just as the beginning.
Sunil, humanity keeps advancing, so does technology. Can we keep pace? I know that we're talking about the need for hundreds of more satellites pretty quickly up there. In terms of market saturation as well, would you agree or disagree that we're almost there?
Well, the demand for bandwidth is insatiable, so you need more capacity. In fact, quite the contrary, we will be running out of capacities pretty soon. So already OneWeb is now designing Generation 2 satellites, which we plan to start putting up in orbit in 23, 24, because we are very sure that the Gen 1 capacity will start to run out very quickly. Plus, you add more bells and whistles, you have new features coming into the Gen 2. There could be possibilities of thermal imaging, surveillance, and PNT, which is something the UK has been wanting for a long time, in lieu of GPS, which is the locational services. So lots of stuff will happen in Gen 2. And we are actually right now working towards that, because Gen 1 is now on its way to being available to the markets in the next few months. So I would say the world needs more data, more capacity, more bandwidth.
You completely agree, Joseph. You're nodding vehemently. Talk to me about that and how we scale up.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's right on. I mean, when you think about cities today, we have data, but less than 5% of that data is actually being used to actually drive innovations or reshape what we believe our fundamental view of the world is. I think when you open that up to a variety of diverse and inclusive individuals who no longer had or previously did not have access with the technology that we're talking about, all of a sudden you magnify the possibilities. If you were to ask me today, what's going to be the future, what's the best future tech job in the future, you'd have to say it hasn't been invented yet. And that's the kind of excitement and innovation that when you talk to the young Saudi population, I mean, 60% under age of 35, they get fired up when they get an opportunity to work and engage in this new technology. So where, yes, I do think the market has sufficient players, I think that you have to be careful, a little bit humble, and say, yes, but is that the only market that will come from this technology? And I think there's a lot for us to learn.
Lord Grimstone, the final word as we wrap up the panel. This is not the only market opportunity, is it? There's much growth that can stem from the development of this technology, and the UK is very interested in being on board, right?
Yes, no, absolutely so. And Joseph talks about this is a thing for youngsters. It's also a thing for the over 70-year-olds, like me, because I'm doing things that I've never done before, because of this. And that's what I love about just constant innovation, constant excitement. And it's entrepreneurialism, which drives this forward.
Exactly. We're all learning all of the time. Sunil, your closing thoughts, key takeaway from our discussion today.
Well, I think this is an exciting world. Space is opening up in a variety of ways. There are different initiatives that are underplay. People are trying to colonize Mars. These space stations are being set up at great pace. Lots of exciting stuff happening there. We are playing our role to ensure that space becomes a place to connect our world and beyond. And that's what we are doing. And I truly hope this will be a transformational step into the future.
Thank you. And Joseph, the final words to NEOM. Such an exciting project. We're all very much excited by it. If we sit here a year from now, how will the conversation have moved on? What will we be talking about?
If I think about a year from now, I'm hopeful that we will talk less about our differences and about more commonality in the world today. I think it's so important that the galvanizing force, or why you have 56 different nationalities in the middle of a desert from different industries, putting aside ego and differences, is because we're working on a common purpose, and that's to accelerate human progress. And so I think, hopefully, as we think about the conversations that we're having here and a year ago, it becomes one of unity and one of purpose.
How perfect. What a perfect note to end on. Unity, that's what it's all about. And so there we sadly have to wrap up our conversation. It just remains for me to thank my esteemed panelists and you, the audience. Please thank my panelists with me. And now, if you can hear me, just before I hand back to FII and we enjoy the evening's events, I would like to introduce a video which is a special message to the FII community by Mei Sunshi Song, the chairman and CEO of SoftBank Group. Thank you.
Hello, this is Masa Song. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince, and Your Excellency, Yasha. Thank you very much for supporting us and inviting me. Well, we have been investing into more than 300 AI companies in the last several years. I have been doing only one thing for the last 40 years. Doing job, investing into this information revolution. Mankind had 3 revolutions in the history: agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, and information revolution. Within the information revolution, the front end has been changed. PC, internet, mobile, and then now into AI. Internet has disrupted 2 industries. One is advertisement industry in the media. The second is e-commerce in the retail business. Advertisement industry is roughly 1% of GDP. E-commerce is 10% of retail. Retail is 10% of GDP. So 10% of GDP is retail. 10% of retail is e-commerce now worldwide. So that's 10% times 10% is 1%. So 1% is advertisement. The 1% is e-commerce. Those are the 1% plus 1% of GDP of the world, which has drastically changed mankind's lifestyle, led by the GAFA as example. But for the next 20 years, I believe the AI is going to disrupt the remaining 98% of the industries, such as medical, fintech, education, everything. So I'm very excited. What does it do for mankind's future? People can live healthier, longer. People can get educated much more smartly, much more intelligent. Everybody will have the opportunity to learn, to educate themselves. Every kids, every adults can educate themselves. The productivity will increase. The entertainment become more fun. All of this is, I think, is good for humanity. So unless we use the AI for the misusage, AI front end, the technology will help humanity. People can live much happier, I think. So I'd like to continue to invest for the humanity, for the future of mankind's happiness through the technology disruption. Opportunity is in front of everybody. So I would really encourage all of you to either invest or do the job or start a company, whatever way. Let's invest together for the humanity, for the future of mankind. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. We know it's been an incredibly long day, and we've been honored with many interesting contributions from heads of state, ministers, leaders of industry, and policy from around the world. However, we do know that we've run over time, so we're going to end our day today. We will be starting the Metaverse Summit tomorrow at 9:45, which will be a section after our first panel, and we will be releasing a new agenda with updated timings for other sessions of tomorrow. So thank you all so much for your contributions and your time and your energy today, and we look very much forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you very much and have a lovely evening.